At this point, we should be pretty familiar with the various components and concepts behind the Linux operating system. So we can't really go much further until we install Linux. So this set of movies is going to cover various components of the Linux installation. So we've covered our prerequisites. We know what we need to do as far as checking our hardware compatibility. Now it's time to move on into actually installing those files. So the first thing we're going to cover are the available installation modes. Now, installation modes are very important, and this is actually one of the key things that allows Linux to be so flexible. So we have many different modes that we can choose to start the installation under that will allow us to either install it even if there is not compatible hardware, or install it under pretty extreme circumstances, or do a standard install. So once we have a pretty good idea about the different installation modes that are available, we'll move forward into the initial installation, which is where we're going to configure some basic settings such as language, keyboard mapping, things of that nature. Moving forward, we actually get to detect and configure our hardware that's going to be used by the Linux operating system. So this is where doing your research and doing your homework prior to the installation will definitely come in handy. Now, following the hardware installation, we're going to go ahead and select a boot manager. And we'll talk a little bit about what your options are there and some reasons that you might install to specific locations as opposed to others. And just before our lab, we'll talk about package selection. Now, there are many different options here as well. There are literally thousands of packages available. So there are some pre-canned options that will help you if you're really not sure what to select. And finally, wrapping everything up, we'll move into the installation lab, where we'll actually walk through the installation of Red Hat 7.3. So taking a few moments to talk about the available installation modes, there are two primary modes that are used most often. And by default, if you don't choose anything else, then the installation is going to be started in graphical mode. Now, most of the time, this is exactly what we want. It provides you the ability to use your mouse and to point and click your way through well-formed and visually appealing menus. Now, it's very possible that your video card may not be supported with the default drivers. If that's the case, then the text mode installation may be the ticket. Text mode will also offer you the ability to perform the installation easily without the use of a mouse. Now, some of the other less popular or less frequently used installation modes include low-res, no-FB, Linux no-probe, and these are basically just various options that will allow you to install if your existing hardware is not the optimal hardware for the distribution you're installing. For example, the no-FB will disable frame buffers when the video card is a very old video card and might not support that feature. In addition, your Linux no-probe will allow you the functionality of not even looking for hardware. Now, that may sound like a bad thing, but if you're using non-standard hardware, such as very old SCSI controllers or maybe extremely old graphical adapters, then it's possible that you would go in and install those hardware components manually by using alternate drivers. So this would allow you that functionality. In addition, as we mentioned before, it's always a good idea to verify that your media is intact and working properly, because you don't want to get halfway through a 2-hour install only to find that your fifth disk is not good. And our final option is Linux Rescue. And this will allow you to boot to something similar to the recovery console in Windows and actually perform repair and validation tasks against an existing install of the Linux operating system. We can also choose or type Linux DD in the command line, and it will actually ask us for those driver disks. So if you have questionable hardware and you know you have the proper packages to support those various hardware components, then you can choose this option to allow you to specify those particular hardware devices. There are also some pre-canned menus available to you. For example, by default, when you boot to your media, it's going to have the main screen available to you, which offers some hints and some tricks that will allow you to get the installation started. If you want to go into more options, you can actually press F2, F3, or F4 to look at some of the options that are available to you. Now, if you don't choose anything, the installation is going to go ahead and start in graphical mode after about 30 seconds. But once you've pressed a button and moved to a different screen, it will sit there indefinitely until you choose an option. So if you want to have a few minutes to look around, then you definitely want to press maybe an F key right off the bat to buy yourself some time before the installation kicks off.